Monday, 13th of September. So we're running this as an in-person meeting, but we've got quite a few people joining virtually. So I'd just like to ask everybody who's joining the meeting online to keep their microphones muted, so that we don't get a lot of unnecessary extraneous noise in the meeting. Okay, shall we do some introductions? So I'm Matt White, I'm chair of the panel. I think we'll just introduce the members of the panel, and officers can introduce themselves when they start. So Councillor Tucker, would you like to start? We'll go around in order.
Yes, Noah Tucker, a member of the panel, councillor for St Anne's Ward.
Charles Sajid, member of the panel, councillor for Whitehall.
Councillor Amina Ibrahim, member of the panel, Labour councillor for Knoll Park Ward.
Councillor Bob Hare, Highgate Ward, member of the panel.
Councillor Dawn Barnes, Liberal Democrat, councillor for Crouch End and member of the panel.
And we have one more member of the panel joining us virtually, Councillor Hearn.
Good evening, Councillor Kirsten Hearn. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah, Councillor Kirsten Hearn, appearing virtually because I'm isolating. Sorry, also did want to say actually that if I want to speak, I'll turn my video on, okay? If you and Dominic can watch out for that.
Okay, thank you. You were a bit intermittent there, but hopefully the connection will be good during the meeting.
I'm 3 feet away from my router. Okay. All right.
Oh yeah. Also, just to point out, although the online meeting does have a chat function, we won't be making use of this during the meeting. So anything that's posted in the chat will not form part of the meeting, given that this is a formal meeting and that matter of public record. So nothing in the chat will form part of that record. Okay, so to get on with the meeting, because we've got a packed agenda, I need to point out that the meeting is being filmed and it's being recorded for subsequent broadcast on the council's site. And anyone attending the meeting can also record the meeting. Although we ask members of the public who record, film or report on the meeting not to include members of the public attending the meeting, we can't guarantee that they won't be filmed or recorded by others attending the meetings. So people who are participating in the meeting, who are making deputations, asking questions, making oral protests, etc., should be aware that they're likely to be filmed, recorded, or reported on. So by entering the meeting room and using any public seating area, you're consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings. That includes people joining virtually, especially if their cameras are on, because they'll appear on the screen in the room. As chair of the meeting, I have the discretion to terminate or suspend filming or recording if, in my opinion, continuation of the filming, recording, or reporting would disrupt or prejudice the proceedings, infringe the rights of any individual, or lead to the breach of legal obligation by the council. Okay. So apologies for absence. We've had apologies for not being physically here from Councillor Hearn, but she is joining virtually and will be taking full part in the meeting virtually. So that's good. Item 3 is urgent business. I don't believe we have any urgent business. No. So then moving swiftly on, declarations of interest. Do any members of the panel have any matters of interest to declare? Nobody seems to. Okay, right. Item 5 is questions, petitions, and deputations. So first of all, on this item, We've received a number of questions, I think. Oh. Okay, that's been sorted out. Thanks for that. Okay, Mr. Grant has submitted a list of questions to be presented to this panel for a response. Now, we're not actually in a position to provide a response at this time for these questions. They need to be worked through by officers so that the cabinet member and officers can provide responses to these questions, and that will be done in a matter of 10 working days. But just to publicly acknowledge receipt of these questions from Mr. Grant, and just to inform Mr. Grant that a response will be provided to those questions in due course. We have 2 deputations this evening, and we're going to hear those deputations in the order in which they were received. So the first deputation, both these deputations, by the way, are in relation to item 10 on the agenda, which is on monitoring of the recommendations of the Ward's Corner Scrutiny Review. So what we're going to do is we're going to hear both these deputations, and I'm going to propose at this point that we vary the agenda of today's meeting and move item 10 up the agenda to follow this item 5, so that the deputations, the members of the deputation, can be here to hear that item. I'm also going to propose separately to that, given the packed agenda and the unlikelihood that we're actually going to make it through the agenda, I'm going to suggest to the panel that we postpone item 9 on the St Anne's development to our next meeting, which is in November. Is the panel happy for those 2 amendments to the agenda to happen? You're quite right, yes, sorry. So item 8 on the St Anne's development, yes, thank you for that, Councillor Ajay. Yeah, we agreed on that. Okay, great. So we'll proceed with those amendments to the agenda, and I'm happy to welcome the first deputation, which has come from Lita Kawajagashi and Matthew Stiles and others, it says on my paper here. So you will have 3 minutes to present. Well, this is, yes, absolutely, yes. No, thanks for that. So that's 3 minutes to present. I'm aware that a translator is going to be required, so I won't be including the time for translation in that 3 minutes. Yes, Councillor Tucker.
Yes, I just wonder, given that a translator is necessary, if you could give the translator just the time to translate what you've just said to the deputation, and also if you could ask the members of the deputation to introduce themselves, because this may be a leap, but I'm guessing that Matthew Stiles isn't one of the 3 people present.
Apologies, yes. Thanks. If the members of the deputation could introduce themselves, and yes, you're right, I should allow time for what I'm saying to be translated.
Hello. Did you just say that they will introduce themselves first? Okay.
That would be really helpful. Yes, please.
Mi nombre es Marta Inestrosa, comerciante de System Market, 14 años, propietaria de una peluquería Oasis Unisex Salons, y soy una de las directoras del Community Center Pueblito Paisa CIC.
My name is Marta Inestrosa. I am a trader for about 14 years in the Pueblito Paisa, and I'm owner of a hairdresser in in the market. And I'm also a member of the CIC Center Pueblito Paisa.
Okay, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Lita Kawahigashi. I'm trader of Seven Sisters Market. I'm trader from 2003. That's all.
Thank you, and great to meet you. Okay, you have 3 minutes to speak now. Of course, as I said, I will not be including the translation time in that 3 minutes.
Mi nombre es Marta Inestrosa. He venido aquí a hablar en nombre de comerciantes de Seven Sisters Market que quieren que el Consejo de Haringey sea quien directamente tome las riendas del mercado, tome el futuro y el destino del mercado de Seven Sisters.
My name is Marta Inestrosa. I am here to speak on behalf of traders who wish to see Haringey Council to take a direct stake in the future and destiny of the running of the Seven Sisters Market.
En Colombia fui abogada de campesinos, cuales sus tierras fueron arruinadas en la construcción de un oleoducto por parte de una compañía multinacional. Esto me generó señalamientos por parte de la derecha de ser terrorista y guerrillera. Fui amenazada por paramilitares y salí del país salvando mi vida en el 2002. Llegué al mercado de Seven Sisters en el 2006 y en el 2017 ayudé a formar el Community Center Pueblito Paisa CIC, que es una organización que se encarga de velar por la cultura y el arte. Se encarga de dar asesoramiento y apoyo a la comunidad.
In Colombia, I was a lawyer for peasant farmers and livelihoods was oil farm. For doing this work, the right wing called me terrorist, guerrillera, and I received death threats from paramilitary death squads. Finally, I was made aware of an imminent plan to execute me, and I fled the country. And with the help of the British trade union movement and Colombia's Solidarity campaign, I gained refugee status in the UK in 2002. In 2006, I became a trader at the Seven Sisters Market with a hairdressers, and in 2017, I helped to set up a community center, Pueblito Paisa CIC, a community organization focused on arts, the culture, and advice and counseling.
La visión que tenemos en el mercado es que sea un mercado para todos, un mercado para toda la comunidad. Queríamos de que el mercado, inicialmente estábamos todos luchando por el mismo objetivo. Queríamos queremos que no solamente sea para que se realicen reactividades económicas, nosotros queremos que el mercado también se realicen actividades sociales, actividades culturales, no simplemente económico.
Our vision is for a market where all are made welcome and a place that is not just for economic activity, but for social and cultural activity as well. It is why all of us traders were initially very supportive of the community plan. I, in particular, was very active in the development and have raised a lot of funds for the development of the community plan.
Por eso inicialmente todos los comerciantes apoyamos el plan de la comunidad. Yo trabajé muy fuerte para el plan de la comunidad. Ayudé a recoger fondos para desarrollar ese plan comunitario.
So I'm going to repeat the last bit. I was very active in this development and I helped to raise a lot of funds for the development of this community plan.
Desafortunadamente, en el 2017 hubo un quebrantamiento, una división en nosotros los comerciantes. Desde entonces fui excluida del plan comunitario. Fui señalada de ser traidora y también de perseguir intereses propios. También fui difamada y perseguida con comentarios como que era de la guerrilla y terrorista, y señalamientos de que fuera socialista, como si fuera esto un insulto. Para mí ser socialista es motivo de orgullo y satisfacción.
Unfortunately, towards the end of 2017, internal relations between traders and the market broke down. I have since been excluded from the development of the community plan. I have great misgivings about the protagonism to certain organizations in the plan. Since the breakdown of relationships, I have been publicly called a traitor and a person only involved for my own interests. I have also been subject to a whispering campaign that has seen me called a terrorist, and guerrillera. I have also been called a socialist, as if it were an insult, not realizing that socialist is in fact a badge of pride that I wear.
En este contexto surge la necesidad urgente de que el Consejo de Haringey proteja este bien común que es el mercado. Necesitamos protección, seguridad, salud, que solamente puede ser garantizada por una entidad responsable. No queremos que el futuro del mercado quede en manos de organizaciones que solamente cuenten con 2 personas como miembros o 3 personas y se excluya el resto. Nosotros queremos y creemos en la función pública de los funcionarios públicos de velar por el bien general y no particular.
In this context, we need the Haringey Council to step up as a democratic, accountable, and public body at the moment. We do not want a future where the market is led by a few people, 2 or 3 people, and the power stays with, the control stays with these 2 or 3 people. We don't want the rest of the people to be excluded. We want and we believe in the public support, we believe in the council, and we feel that this is very paramount to ensure the fair treatment and proper established processes to ensure the health and safety of traders and the public.
Sorry, so you've had significantly more than 3 minutes now, so I'm going to have to throw it open to the panel members to ask questions. But if you have more to say, then hopefully that can be brought out in the questioning. Thank you very much for your deputation. Okay, I will now see if any panel members have any questions. So, Councillor Ajay, I saw your hand first.
Yeah, thank you for coming to talk to us. This. Hello? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, can you hear me better now? Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, thank you for taking the time to present your deputation this evening. One thing that struck me was the work that you did in Colombia and the fact that you said the British trade union helped you as well as some other organizations to in terms of your status here. That's wonderful. Please, I'm a trade unionist, so I'm pleased that you have that support. I'm just concerned about the point you made about whisperings against you and being called terrorists. Who are these people that's been whispering against you and calling you terrorists or a terrorist?
What's your question?
Through you, Chair, I do wonder if asking the deputation to name people in this situation is actually an unfair question, and we shouldn't do it, given that we are in a public meeting.
Okay, would you like to reconsider your question?
Well, I asked a genuine, simple question. If she wants to answer it, fine. I don't see anything, I've not read anything into it personally. Okay.
But I also think if the deputation isn't comfortable answering that, then that should be made clear to them as well.
Chair, could we explain that? Chair, could we explain that through the translator?
Sorry, if it will cause any hassle, I'm prepared not to ask the question. Okay, I'm just trying to understand why anyone would call someone like that a terrorist who's been fighting the cause. That's why I asked the question.
But just to be clear, you're not asking the names to be named. No, you're just asking for more detail on what those accusations are. Yeah, I think that's fair enough.
Para hablar con toda claridad, existe unas diferencias políticas al interior del mercado. Es plenamente público de que un sector apoya al gobierno actual, que es un gobierno de derecha, y yo, siendo defensora de derechos humanos, pues siempre he trabajado por la comunidad, no solo aquí donde llegué, sino que desde Colombia. Entonces, soy minoría dentro del mercado. Y sí pienso que el conflicto armado colombiano traspasa fronteras. Pienso que se carga con todo ese linaje que nos ha dejado la guerra. Yo soy entrevistadora de la Comisión de la Verdad. Tomé 76 testimonios, sigo aportándole a la paz de mi país. Hago parte de un colectivo de mujeres diásporas que nos encargamos de tratar mujeres que tienen traumas del conflicto armado. De esta organización soy trustee y es evidente de que cargamos desde Colombia una herencia de guerra, de agresión y traspasa fronteras también.
To speak quite clearly, there are very public differences of political views in the market. The current government is a political party that is a right-wing party, and being myself a human rights lawyer that have always worked pro-human rights, working with areas where there have been conflicts, it is clear that conflict and the armed forces do translate still here to the UK. I have been there is a process where interviewed testimonies, so collected testimonies of witnesses from paramilitary forces, victims, and I am, as Marta, she said that she's been collecting these testimonies from 66 people. Marta also says that she's been working with women in collectives where they have been trying to overcome the abuses. 1 second, sorry. En el colectivo de mujeres dice que trata de traumas, sí. Del producto. So working also with a collective of women, where they try to overcome the traumas and impact of the conflict, the paramilitary conflict in Colombia, in here, for which she's also a trustee. And these are all the impact that is being brought in our stories in here.
Great, thank you. Councillor Tucker.
Yes, and thank you very, very much for coming and presenting to this panel. So I just have a couple of questions. The presentation, the written presentation that we've been given, mentions the West Green Road Seven Sisters Trust. And my understanding is that the council is currently backing this body to effectively take control of the lease of the market. Your presentation indicates that you and other traders do not have confidence in this body. Is that correct? And if so, why is that?
Can you switch your microphone off when you're not speaking?
Nosotros no estamos de acuerdo, puesto de que hemos sido excluidos de toda la consulta. Aparte de esto, hemos consultado Company House. Sabemos que la integran solamente un miembro, un trader del mercado, y hemos conocido el historial, sabemos que no tienen ni la experiencia, ni la solidez, no tienen ni la capacidad. Aparte de esto, nos han excluido y tenemos que ser conscientes que estamos enfrente de comerciantes trabajadores que se dedican el 100% a su trabajo. Están muchos desinformados, no conocen a fondo la problemática de la situación, lo que los hace manipulables a cualquier situación.
We are not in agreement because we have been excluded from the process. We have consulted with Companies House, and we have found out that it's only one trader who's included in there. We also understand that there isn't the experience, capacity, knowledge in that trust. And we are quite conscious as well, quite aware that current traders do work really hard and working all day and may not have the knowledge and of the full picture of what's going on, and therefore could be quite, I don't know if the word correctly word is manipulated, or can be kind of led without the proper information of everything that's happening.
En complementación, yo solicité ser miembro del trust y se me negó la entrada cuando todos estábamos trabajando juntos. Y yo hice las averiguaciones de que todos podíamos tener derecho. Entonces, ¿por qué se incluye a un grupo de comerciantes? Y yo, que me siento con pleno derecho a pertenecer a la organización, porque he trabajado muy duro por el plan comunitario. Al comienzo todos estábamos unidos y yo me encargaba de recolectar los fondos y de convocar a la comunidad latinoamericana, vendiendo rifas y haciendo eventos para recoger los dineros del que fue inclusive el primer plan que se presentó por parte de la comunidad.
To resolve this, I requested to be part of the trust, but they denied this to me without reasons. And we ask ourselves, why would they not allow us to be part of this trust? Because we really do have the right to be part of it, but we have not been allowed in. I have been fully involved from the very beginning, raising funds, doing all sorts of activities to raise the funds that were needed for all our costs, and including for the very first project that we launched. So one second. El primero, sí, de los fondos de los gastos de abogado. Sí.
Para el plan. Para el plan.
So the cost for the first plan that was launched, and to cover also the lawyer's cost, legal cost.
Thank you. Did you have a follow-up question?
My understanding is that, separate from this statement, your group has also written to the council, wrote a letter to the council asking the council to take a role in running the market. Could you confirm that? And if so, could you tell us how many traders signed that statement?
Sí, lo confirmo. Son 17 comerciantes y conviene aclarar de que hay comerciantes de que miran según su situación el punto que está en discusión, que están confundidos y entonces firman cualquier tipo de carta también. No firman las de el otro grupo como también la nuestra. Como también hay otros que nunca se hacen presente.
Yes, I can confirm that. There are 17 traders, and also it's important to clarify that there are some traders that could sign both letters, and there are also some traders that don't sign anything.
Okay, thank you very much. Next to ask a question is Councillor Ibrahim.
So if you could, obviously, I might take a little bit of time to get across what I'm going to say, but then ask a question. So I'd like to thank both of you for attending today, and much of what you've said is extremely brave. And I know, and we all know, it can be quite difficult, particularly with close-knit communities. And I think that you should really feel that the council is a safe space and is a safe place to come to in order to put forward these concerns. I'll let you translate and then I'll carry on. And I think much of what you've described is pretty much the story of Haringey and the story of many communities that come to our borough, and it's a challenge to us about how we engage with communities without making assumptions, and recognising that communities who come here often come from places where there is conflict, whether it's political conflict, whether it's ethnic conflict. I know from my own experience from the community that I come from, and the role that Haringey Council in the past, over the last, whether it's since 1974, since the 80s, has played in understanding the challenges within communities, and that not everybody feels the same way about everything. And next I'll come to my question. And again, I reiterate, this is something that many people in our borough, what you've described, relate to and identify with. So my question is the role of the council and what you're asking of this committee, whether to recommend, whether to be involved in, is whether, and I think I've garnered the question from what you've said and from your deputation, and I'll use language that has previously been used in scrutiny reviews about the role of the council as an honest broker. Is that how you see our role as an accountable outside body that will just put aside all of the kind of whether it's intra-community, external issues, and come at this with an open and clear mind and not be seen as taking sides on what are often very complicated issues?
I really praise what you say, because we feel hounded, and we feel ostracized, excluded, thrown on. We've been treated badly until now, until tomorrow. I don't know until when.
Follow-up question was going to be, do you feel that there is anybody other than a council, whether it be some kind of facilitator, that could have that kind of effect on making sure that everybody feels better? Or do you think that the council is the best placed person or body to do that? And if so, why?
Ante la situación actual, pienso que desde todo punto de vista, el cónsul debe de asumir la responsabilidad si es que quiere estar de mano con nuestra comunidad. No tenemos garantía de tener un mejor futuro porque no sabemos si un ente privado, en qué condiciones vamos a tener que pagar, cómo van a ser las rentas. Además, hay unos problemas internos muy fuertes que, como ustedes verán, no puedo mencionar acá, pero sí puedo decir que he tenido que ir hasta la policía y denunciar, y también me han amenazado ante denuncias legales por difamación, con una firma muy prestigiosa acá. Yo tengo experiencia en defenderme y lo sé hacer muy bien, pero no deja de ser desgastante, preocupante. Yo tengo hijos, tengo familia y tengo una comunidad. Me dedico mucho aquí a trabajar muy fuerte para brindar un soporte. En este tiempo de COVID, nosotros estamos realizando 3 talleres semanales de soporte emocional de salud mental para la comunidad.
It's very important to be clear that if the council wants to take responsibility and a role in this is the moment to have that role with the community. We have no guarantees that things will improve. That in the future coming, if we talk about a private company coming in, that we don't know how much we're going to be charged, we don't know what's going to happen, we don't know what will be for us as traders. They have been, on top of that, as you heard, and you know, there are internal political conflicts and very difficult things that I cannot even say in here, and including to the point, but what I can tell you is that I have needed to go to police with a defamation case that was put against me. But I'm used to fight and I'm used to defend myself, and I do it really well, and I'll continue to do. But it's also important that you know that we have continued to support the community, especially the traders community. We have been delivering, for example, mental health workshops throughout COVID, offering support throughout COVID, and we continue to do so.
Thank you very much. And we had a question from Councillor Barnes as well.
Thank you, Councillor White. Thank you for coming today and speaking to us about the market, which is a fantastic place, and obviously we'd like to keep it very much. I think it's really important that all the traders are involved. So there's been a history of bullying and other things around this whole market, whether that's been Granger's and the guy that was in charge of speaking with you and him failing to communicate with traders and so on, and he went. And there were a number of recommendations made by the panel, but there was a council officer who also sat on a group with some of the traders and representatives from Granger's and so on. And that wasn't reporting back very much or at all, indeed, to the council on what's happening. So I don't know whether or not the council could take a role. If it did, then the representation would need to be right and at a high enough level, and there'd have to be accountability in that, because there didn't seem to be, under the last iteration of the kind of overseeing board or panel. And I wondered if the council wasn't actually going to take on the running of the market as a whole, would an independent body or a charitable trust or something, could that be set up to represent all of the traders? There could well be council representation as well, but as I said, it needs to be at the correct level, because there's no point a council officer coming along and not reporting back, because this behaviour can continue and it wouldn't be documented and the council wouldn't know about it. So there are other options that would work for you if the council didn't take on the management entirely itself.
I want to say just something very little. We've been having meetings with DFL, and it's been suggested that we are, it's going to be formed, or suggested that it's going to be like partnership bodies between Haringey and DFL and GLA and the rest. And so, and there was mention as well mediation. So we'll see. I'll give the word to.
Pienso que el control debe ser manejado por el council, porque tiene experiencia, ha manejado. Quienes manejan los mercados son generalmente por los councilors. ¿Por qué? Porque tienen ese compromiso con la comunidad. Es que no es solamente un interés con los mercados, son populares, es de gente trabajadora. No estamos hablando de grandes mercados. Entonces, debe tener el control. Está bien de que se tenga que tener un apoyo y de profesionales competentes, de firmas experimentadas que apoyen a realizar este trabajo, y que también nosotros como comerciantes seamos escuchados y tenidos en cuenta. Se trata de que sí, exista un cuerpo, pero la cabeza tiene que, me parece a mí, así como se eligen los concejales para la protección de un bien común. El mercado es un bien común de la comunidad. Tiene que interesarnos. Son ustedes, señores concejales, los que tienen que asumir esta responsabilidad y no dejarlo a la suerte, a la comunidad indefensa, vulnerable, que está en el día a día, tratando de conseguir un sustento, que conoce las normatividades, a que se las lleve el mejor postor, o el que abre más duro, o el que sea más agresivo, o el que utilice la violencia. Son ustedes, para eso los ha elegido la comunidad. Tienen una responsabilidad muy grande de los destinos de la comunidad.
I think the control must be, the management control must be the council, because the markets are a place that have a shared interest for all. You have the commitment to manage these markets. You have done this, you do this in its majority. And it is okay that they can be a body that can be of support to do this. But because it's important to have competent team that can help us to manage this. Especially to give the traders a voice, but the head of this body should be the council. And just to end is that the councillors, you are all committed to the community. This is what you've chosen as your passion, as your vocation. And the community, in this case the traders, are in a vulnerable stage, are in a vulnerable situation, because they could be sold off or be given to people that are perhaps the ones that manipulate or maybe abusive or even violent at times, and things are not good for them.
Thank you very much. And we have a question from Councillor Hare.
I too, have, it's not so much a question, but it's that I do think that a charitable body or a charitable incorporated organisation, there's a number of possibilities. And it could even be a more commercial version of that. But an organisation could, I think, help, and it would be for you to define the governance that's going to be most appropriate. And yes, the council could be one of the bodies that's involved through some sort of representation, whether that was 1, 2 or 3 councillors. But having been on this council for a very long time, I think that I see it is not necessarily the answer to the maiden's prayer. It is not necessarily the answer you want, because councillors have got so many other pressures on them that the focus that you would want, the understanding, the knowledge that you would want the council to bring, it should only be part of the body. In the end, this is your trading, it is your businesses, it is your future. And really, what I would like to see most of all is actually what you asked for in your document, that the body is accountable and it should be open to all traders. And that is something that the council could help you by insisting on. The council could say, we want to work with a charitable or a community interest organisation, whatever the structure that you chose. But a charity, if you had it, does bring legal requirements in terms of how it's governed. And I would really like to see the two sides of this argument, two sides here working together in a single body, charitable or otherwise, so that the council could help you by saying, we want this, we want a fair governance, we want a democratic organisation. And I am sure that in the end, that would be better for you, because councils are really poor at running things that are not in their core tasks, their core expertise. So we're quite good at democracy, but we're not good at doing what you want, which is to have a really successful, wonderful market. And so I would perhaps, I don't know whether the cabinet member here has a role to answer. Chair, you may be able to say whether the cabinet member could help.
This is actually the time for questions, and that's not, you've made a comment, fair enough, but given the time that we've got, I don't really want to throw it open for discussion now.
No.
So I think you've made your points. I think,
Question, Chair, is whether that would be received, whether that is something that sounds like it would be acceptable, or whether that is a way forward.
Chair,
¿Qué más quisiéramos que la comunidad siempre fuera humana, estuviera unida? Yo que trabajo, que soy constructora de paz, como se refieren a mí, que estoy con los procesos de convivencia, de reconciliación, de perdón. ¿Qué más quisiéramos? Que hubiera un entendimiento. Pero acá, sinceramente, les digo que si no hay un liderazgo por parte del Consejo, muy probablemente va a ocurrir una desgracia. Desafortunadamente, y yo pienso que ustedes tienen la responsabilidad, si algo pasa o sucede con la integridad y seguridad de los comerciantes, de los clientes que atienden el mercado, que conste que aquí hemos venido a tocar las puertas.
What else we would love for the community to be united, and we would have absolutely loved that. As myself, as constructora de paz, meaning a peacemaker, we would have loved for us to have a mutual understanding, but that is not happening, and this is why we believe that if we don't have your leadership on the matter, then there could potentially be bad things happening. And you need to know as a council if there is any damage to the integrity, dignity to our traders, that we did come and did tell you this, we did come and knock your doors first.
okay, thank you very much. Now, I see more hands have gone up, but we are quite a long way into the meeting now. We've got another deputation to come. So if this is a question, then that's one thing. But if we're going to have a discussion on what's been said, then I think that should happen after we've heard both deputations, and also after we've dealt with the item on Ward's Corner scrutiny review. So that's what I propose, and that we thank the deputation very much for coming today, and invite the other deputation in. Did you have a point to raise on this?
yeah, I just think just for the it's just an observation that I think we shouldn't be telling either deputation what we think is good for them.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much for coming today. It's been really good to hear you and to hear your answers to the panel's questions. I did have some questions myself, but I will save them. I think it's been quite everything's been quite well covered by the questions from the other panel members. So thank you very much for coming.
Muy agradecidos y estamos abiertos a escucharlos. Por favor, escúchennos también a nosotros. Los esperamos en el café, Pueblito Paisa, para que compartamos, para que sientan el calor humano de la gente buena que hay ahí también y que quiere salir adelante.
Thank you for listening to us. Do continue to listen to us. Do listen to us. In fact, come to the cafe and meet us there and speak to us and see us there. We want to see you there. I wish I could say more, but I'm just a translator. But yeah. But I've been a witness of everything that Marta said. So yeah, I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so welcome to our second deputation of the evening. Could I ask the members of the deputation to just briefly introduce themselves before presenting?
Thank you. Yes, my name's Mavanwi Taylor. I'm a local Haringey resident from West Green Ward. I've been an active member of Ward's Corner Community Coalition since the mid-2010s, the early to mid-2010s. I'm also an academic expert in the community value of markets, working on a national project about the community value of markets. I gave evidence to the council's scrutiny review and also to the CPO public inquiry. I was called by the market traders as an expert witness to that inquiry in the late 2010s. And at the end of last year, I became a trustee of the West Green Road and Seven Sisters Development Trust.
Thank you.
Good evening all. My name is Nicholas Amaya. I'm a trader in Seven Sisters Market and have been working there for about 12 years. I'm also the deputy chair of Seven Sisters Market Tenants Association. I've had a long interaction in terms of I was a member of the regional steering group as well, and I also gave evidence to the previous scrutiny review that was done.
Thank you very much. Okay, great. So you have 3 minutes to make your presentation, following which we'll be taking questions from the panel members. So go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been asked to introduce the deputation, but obviously Nicholas is here, and there's also members of our deputation on the call, Sue Penny from Ward's Corner Community Coalition and Ben Beach from Unit 38 Architects, at least. There may be others, I'm not sure. Obviously, I'd like to introduce the deputation that you've had in advance. Obviously, we've also been sitting and hearing to what the previous deputation said, and although you know, I'm sure we'll have other opportunities. I didn't want to let the opportunity go to not respond to a couple of points that were made. I'd be grateful if there could be a couple of minutes allowed to allow that to happen. Obviously, quite serious points were made.
We were only allowed 3 minutes for the presentation, and then anything else can be dealt with under the questions.
Okay, well, I'll just very briefly then note that, you know, personally, I feel very sad that it's come to this. It was very difficult to listen to what was said by Marta and Lita, but I'm glad that I had the chance to listen to it. Personally, I recognise their contribution to the community plan and to the campaign. Personally, I've also written to them and offered a meeting on behalf of the trust, and that's a really important meeting, and I really hope that we have the chance to heal the divisions in amongst the traders and amongst the community. It's been a terrible 20 years that the traders have suffered and been at the heart of, and I really hope that we have the chance to work all together, regardless of which trader group, to deliver the community plan. Of course, the council has a role there. The council has a really important role there, but this is a community plan. It's the product of 15 years community and trader organising, and it's a community asset. The community and traders are best placed to know their needs and to deliver that, and it provides all sorts of opportunities. So I really hope that we do get the chance finally, a month after Granger has gone, before the council takes back, you know, control of the community plan, that we actually give the community a bit of chance to heal these divisions, please, before the council steps in. Anyway, to introduce the deputation, so yes, it's a little over a month since Granger withdrew from Ward's Corner, citing viability problems with the scheme. After nearly 20 years of neglect and conflict around the site, it's urgent that we act quickly to deliver the community plan. We were therefore really encouraged by the council's decision to show support for the community plan at the earliest opportunity. Our deputation seeks to update the panel on the recent progress made on the community plan and to seek further support from the council as we move forward. The community plan proposes the sensitive and sustainable restoration of the historic Wards building, delivering a new and improved space for Seven Sisters Indoor Market, which is an asset of community value listed by the council, alongside new affordable retail and office and community space. All existing traders will be included in the new market and rents will be maintained at existing levels. It was initially proposed, the community plan was, by a group of market traders back in 2007. And the community plan has evolved through several iterations and countless community meetings, workshops and events involving a wide range of market traders, local residents and local businesses before it gained planning permission from the council in 2014 and again in 2019 to overwhelming support. The plan is supported by the majority of market traders. 28 out of 38 market traders, that's around 74%, signed a statement in support of the community plan last month. Following a successful application to the Architectural Heritage Fund for a project viability grant this summer, work is now beginning to prepare REBA Stage 1 and 2 reports to set the community plan on a more conventional design pathway. And meetings and workshops will be organised with traders and the community to inform those design reports. Professional studies commissioned by the West Green Road and Seven Sisters Development Trust demonstrate the financial viability of the community plan. It's a £13 million development which will be funded through £6 million of identified grant funding, £6 million of ethical investment and a £1 million community share issue. And a bespoke financial model built by Altair for the trust shows that loans will be repaid after 17 years in the scenario, rising to 42 years if no grant funding is secured. And productive conversations are underway with potential funders and investors, and specialist advice is being sought to develop the community share offer.
Okay, could I ask you to wind up now, because you've
Sure.
had 4 minutes actually.
So crucially, work is also beginning to develop a new organisation, the Ward's Corner Community Benefit Society. This would be a democratic organisation owned by its members, delivering the community plan and managing the building on the long-term basis for the benefit of the community on a one-member, one-vote basis. The CBS would be open to all traders and community members, and everybody is invited to participate in workshops to shape this new community benefit society over the coming months. And to reiterate, that includes all traders, not just those associated with the Seven Sisters Market Tenants Association. And ultimately, the role of the trust will then be to reinvest the surplus from the community plan in other projects. So we are underway with work to develop and register the trust as a charity.
Okay.
The trust itself will not deliver the community plan.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to throw it out to questions from the panel members now. Does anyone want to start off? Councillor Ajay first.
Thank you. Thank you for your deputation and for representing the wider group, as you said. I just wonder if you could maybe expand a little bit more about the ethical investment that you talked about as part of your presentation.
Yes, so we've identified that we can secure up to £6 million of grant funding. So that's funding, not investment that would need to be paid back. But the development costs around 13 million, the professional construction cost estimate we've had produced. We think we can raise 1 million through a community share offer, but that would be the upper ceiling of a community share offer. That would be sort of the largest that's ever been delivered. So that would leave us with a 6 million sort of funding gap that we would be seeking from ethical investment banks. So the trust has had two informal discussions with two ethical investment banks, which were quite positive. But of course, the lack of a sightline to the lease from Transport for London remains a barrier. But nonetheless, we're going to advance those discussions and work towards interim heads of terms in the hope that if we can demonstrate the viability of this plan and the funding package that we have, finally we might be able to deliver this community plan.
Councillor Ibrahim. Oh, sorry. You had a follow-up.
Yeah, please. The other point I just want to touch on is you talked about the trusts. So who are members, or who will be members, and how do you become a member, and how will it be managed? Is it a limited liability organization, or even if it's a charity, obviously, then you will need to meet with the requirements of the Charity Commission, for example. I wonder if you could comment on those points as well.
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's very helpful. The trust is currently listed as a not-for-profit company limited by guarantee. Our public and stated intention is to develop the trust and register it as a charity. So it'd be accountable and would need to report to the Charities Commission. That is new work, which we will be beginning this autumn, and there will be workshops and meetings amongst traders and the community that everybody will be invited to inform the process of developing the trust as a charity. As I was explaining earlier, the role of the trust is not to deliver the community plan. That never was the role of the trust, never the intended role of the trust. The trust has a broader remit around the improvement of the town centre for the benefit of everybody who lives there, who works there and uses the town centre. So the trust would reinvest the surplus from the community plan, the surplus from running that building and letting the space in that building. The trust would reinvest that surplus in other community projects. The key organisation is the Community Benefit Society, which doesn't exist yet. So we have a lot of work to do this autumn to set up this new Community Benefit Society. We'll be running workshops over the next 2 months, and we have some advice through the Mayor of London's Boosting Community Business programme to do that. But that will be an organisation that all traders in the community can become members of, and they will play a democratic role, therefore, in restoring the building and in managing it on a long-term basis. It won't be the role of the trust to restore or manage the wards building or Seven Sisters Market within it. I hope that clarifies a little, but I'm happy to expand further.
Sorry, can I go back to the question about or what you said about these ethical investment banks? So I'd like to understand that a little bit. Who are they? And when you say ethical investment banks, is it just banks who have ethical investment kind of targets, or is it, specific, finance organisations who are primarily for ethical investment? That's not clear. And have you approached the council? Is the council not an ethical investor?
Thank you for the question. These discussions are at an early stage. There were 2 large investment banks, and they were proceeded with in order to kind of scope this, to determine the potential to secure investment. They have not been progressed in detail. Granger only withdrew in August. So we've had scoping conversations with 2 large ethical investment banks that lend money on certain terms and conditions that are more prescribed than a regular lender would. But as I say, they've not been advanced in detail. Indeed, the council could, there are many sources of funding that the council could bring to the table, and we would be, that would be excellent if the council were able to part fund or fully fund this project, of course. We haven't got to that point in the discussions yet. But grant, one of the sources of grant funding would be the GLA as well. There's many sources of public funding through the GLA. So when we talk about the 6 million grant funding, we would be very happy to do this on a 100% grant funding basis if we can find 13 million. With our work, we could only identify 6 million. So this is early stage work.
Do you have a follow-up?
I don't quite think that's what I meant, because in terms of your conversations with, I'm still not clear what you mean by ethical investment banks. Are they banks that just do ethical investments, or are they ethical investment arms of big kind of large banks?
No, they're ethical investment banks. They're not arms of larger regular banks.
Okay. And what I meant by the council as an investor, I wasn't just, because obviously these ethical investment banks are banks, they would want a return on their investment. So when I'm talking about approaching the council, as the council isn't just able to give grants. Obviously, as an investor, if there was some kind of discussion around if you're going to be building homes, could they be council homes? Could the council get a return on its investment? Because obviously we don't, councils don't run for profit-making ventures, but if it's an investment that has a return to the council's aims and objectives, that's what I mean by it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Yes, we obviously were very open to exploring that with the council. Yes.
Thank you. So next up to ask the question is Councillor Barnes.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions around the, you said 28 of the 38 traders support the community plan. So how would you plan to engage with the 10 traders who don't support that plan? And the previous delegation spoke to us about the council managing the market. Is there a way that you would see the council being useful, whether that would be to manage the market or whether that would be to be a part of your board or whatever? Is there a way that we could be most useful?
Yes, thank you. So two important questions there. On the issue of how would we engage all traders, regardless of which group they are in. So in terms of the trust engages directly with all traders. The trust is not only for traders of the Seven Sisters Market Tenants Association, the trust is for all traders, and the trust will engage with all groups of traders. That is our remit. So we will continue to do that. The new Community Benefit Society is extremely important, and we've reiterated and will continue to that those workshops and discussions are for all traders. And I hope that all traders will come to those workshops. Personally, as I said, I've written to 4 traders that I'm aware of that are not currently don't feel themselves represented by the association, and I'm really pleased to have a dialogue with some of those traders now. And as I stressed, that is extremely important. The number one thing we need to do here is heal the divisions in the market produced by this terrible 20-year situation. And I think we need time to do that. I'm really hopeful we can do that. As Martin Lita said, there's been many times over the course of that campaign that all traders have stood together. That's why it succeeded, because of the efforts of all traders, and everybody has played a role in different moments. So I hope we can come back together to do this and realize those wonderful days when everybody was together and fighting for the same cause. I'm quite sure we can recover it, but we need to listen more. And personally, that's what I will do, is listen more. The role of the council is really important. In our written deputation, we identified a few things, concrete actions that the council could take now to advance the community plan, to continue to work constructively with the trust and the CBS, to support the development of good relations between the council, the Transport for London and Greater London Authority. As regards the specific issue of the market, you know, the community plan has a wider remit than just the market, but my understanding is the ambitions of the traders have been to self-manage that market. As long as I've been involved, that's been an ambition. So if that still is the ambition of all traders, then, you know, that the vision would be for the CBS to let that space. But if all traders can't come together into one group, then, you know, perhaps that's something that will need to be reconsidered. I don't know. But you know, throughout my involvement, you know, traders have sought several times in the past to obtain the lease of that market space from Transport for London, because they've wanted to, you know, in effect, over many years, traders were self-managing that market because market operators were absent and were not properly investing and not taking care of affairs. But perhaps Nicholas might like to speak as to the current position.
Okay, I'd just like to raise a quick point. The SSMTA, when it works for the members, but it works for everybody in the market. So basically all traders are considered. We have had collaboration in terms of when we have pursued the hardship fund from the Mayor of London and Transport for London. We have managed to get collaboration and signatures of all traders in terms of to order, for getting the funds released. So it's unfortunate we are where we are in terms of the divisions, but this has been something that has happened over a long period of time, but we are open for reconciliation, and ultimately the goal is for a Seven Sisters market that has a bright future, that is not at the mercy of where we have been for the last 15 years in terms of unscrupulous market operators, Seven Sisters market just being utilized as a cash cow, no reinvestment into the current building that has resulted in being dilapidated as it is now. Unscrupulous market operator promoting division amongst the traders in order to divide and rule. So, I mean, this has been a long journey and we are open for reconciliation. We have a lot of representatives that support the community plan, which, you know, we sent to the leader. I think that was 26th of August. We need to talk. I mean, the door is open. I'm sure we can reconcile moving forward to ensure a bright and secure future for Seven Sisters Market and the whole community. Well, that's the vision and that's the dream of what we have. I think once we get round the table and start talking, they will realize that all traders are equal and all traders will have a say in the future market.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Tucker, you had a question.
I've got a few questions actually.
Try and keep it.
I will try and be brief. Mafan, you said a moment ago, you know, we should allow the community to do its thing before the council kind of comes in. But is that really the choice here? I mean, after all, your delegation of four people. Only one of them's a trader. There's already a degree of professionalisation, and what's being proposed is a complicated arrangement involving unnamed grant funders, investment banks that you are at the scoping stage with. And those investment banks will be wanting a return on their money. They're not charity organisations. They'll want a commercial rate of return. They have investors. Can I come to the democratic structure of what's being proposed? The Community Benefit Society, composed of market traders, users and local residents, will democratically manage the building on a one-member, one-vote basis. Who's qualified to get a vote? This is a very, very serious question. We have two groups of traders here, and we've heard some very, very serious concerns raised by the first group who attended. So, I mean, does one member, one vote mean that each group will be going out trying to recruit people to, you know, to get them to join the Community Benefit Society, to turn up to an AGM or vote on a no-mov ballot so that they win control of the board? Is that what we're talking about? And if we're not talking about that, how can we talk about some kind of democracy? What I'm getting at here is the necessity for a genuine publicly accountable body which has a direct relationship with local residents and the expertise and the financial wherewithal and backing. I'm talking about Haringey Council, to come in and step up to the plate. Isn't that actually the way forward, which really does give a meaningful possibility of the engagement and the voice of all the traders and the whole community to be heard?
Okay, quite a few questions there and also quite a lot of comments. I think Sue Penny is sitting on the call from the coalition, who's been involved in this for a long time and might wish to comment after I've said something. Who can be a member of the CBS? The CBS doesn't exist yet. We're at the very earliest stages of setting up. So defining the membership criteria is key, and that will be something that's discussed through the workshops. It's a community benefit society. That means it's meant to be there to benefit the whole community. So in general, there would be very, very few restrictions on membership, just only to ensure it benefited the community. So, you know, certainly all traders and everybody who lives in the area and works in the area and uses the town centre would be able to become a member. It would have a very wide membership, therefore, beyond the traders. So that's a practical, specific question that you asked. Ethical investors expect a return, indeed. That has been factored into the bespoke financial model commissioned by the Trust, and those rates of return. Obviously, if lower rates of return or indeed were factored in, then the loans could be repaid earlier, and that would even then generate a greater surplus for reinvestment in other community projects. So yes, we're aware ethical investors would require a rate of return. Professionalization, I'm not quite sure what was insinuated there. I'm a local resident. I've been involved in the coalition since the early 2010s. I'm also an academic, and my expertise in markets has been built through engagement with Seven Sisters Market. And my wider work on the community value of markets in the largest national research project on markets also draws on that expertise. Now, so I bring something of that to the table, and as we move forward, we will need to bring all kinds of knowledge and information. But the thing about a community benefit society is that it's rooted in the community. You know, it's owned and managed and run by the community, and it will remain so. Of course, it will draw on all kinds of professional advice. But in terms of the spirit of your question, would the CBS try to kind of create a situation in which different trader groups would be playing off against each other to try to gain control? No, it wouldn't. Everybody is invited to shape the CBS. Everybody is invited to become a member of the CBS. So no, we absolutely, that is not, it wouldn't be a CBS. We would have failed if we end up in that situation. The council has a really important role here to finally make this happen after many, many years in which the council has stood in the way of the community plan, actually. And I think 1 month after Granger has withdrawn is a little too soon to be saying the community has lost the chance to heal its divisions and it must be returned to the council, which knows best. I believe that traders know the market best. I believe that community members know this building and the town centre best. And I believe that the Community Benefit Society can work really productively with the council. And the council could bring, as you were suggesting, councillor, all sorts of resources and support to the table. We could build a genuine partnership here and finally do something wonderful. So please, let's work together to do that. I think we have a lot of work to do actually together. So I would really like that we try to do that work together. Over the next few months at least, and then perhaps revisit the question. But no one has been given a chance yet, actually.
Okay, thank you very much.
I am conscious of Sue Penny on the call, who is part of our deputation.
Yeah, I think that you've answered the question, I think, so thank okay. I'm going to let Councillor Hare come in now. We are going to need to finish this item quite soon, but yeah, Councillor.
Thanks very much, Chair. And I just put some things I jotted down as you were speaking, and I wonder whether there's a language difficulty that's increasing the sense of disengagement. Because obviously the first deputation required a translator to give their presentation. And yes, jaw is better than war. It's so important that you yourselves know this, and it's just my reaction, it's reaction of everyone here, is that the two groups have somehow got to come together. And I think it's not a case of the other group, you have an open door and that they have to come to you. I think it will be really important somehow that you find ways of, my comment would be going to them, and perhaps you can react to that. You may say you've already done it. I would be slightly worried about the traders, who after all represent, there's 38 you mentioned, being outvoted in so many situations and yet becoming a cash cow when the development is complete. In other words, they are the people who generate money. So it's just some points that you may be able to answer. Yeah, over to you. Thank you very much.
In terms, Nicholas may want to comment on language issues amongst the traders more generally, but in terms of the trust, yes, we wherever possible, we translate all materials into Spanish. Obviously, it's a work in progress. We have very little resources. We're just emerging from having been stonewalled by most funders for 15 years. So we've got a lot of work to do, but our intention is to translate everything into Spanish. So if you look on the Trust website, you'll see a number of posts are translated into Spanish, not all, and we need to do better. Our most recent public meeting in early August, there was live translation in the chat in Spanish. Again, we could go further. We need to go further. We need resources. We're applying for funding wherever possible. But of course, public bodies who are in a position to fund community organizations, this would obviously really help us do better and do better faster. I very much hope that the Trust discussions with traders who currently are not represented by the association, those discussions are very important. They will be, people will be able to bring whichever translators they need with them, and we do the best to facilitate all of that we can. You made a point about traders becoming a cash cow. I'm not quite sure what was meant there, but if once the wards building is restored, there will be a new market space, and rents in that new market space will be kept at existing levels. So traders won't be exploited financially, and the Wards Corner CBS will rent space in that market building for the new market, but also for other community spaces and small business spaces. So it won't only be the market that's generating the income for this building, and actually that income won't be going to private shareholders or out of the area. It will be reinvested in the local area in projects that also benefit traders and the community. So in a sense, it's creating a different model of urban development in which the benefits of traders' activity at the heart of the town centre and the other businesses in that restored space, those rents actually go in to support other initiatives that benefit them. So it's almost the opposite of them becoming a cash cow, actually, perhaps. But Nicholas, do you want to comment on the work that you're doing in the association around language or other? I just commented in relation to the Trust's engagement.
Okay, we have actually engaged consultants in terms of working with the SSMTA in terms of, trying to get us organized, terms and references and how we work together. Obviously, it's ongoing work, but it's just bringing everyone up to speed in terms of, moving forward, in terms of, obviously, we need to be organized. Moving forward, as I said earlier, we have an open door policy, and we are prepared to, engage with the other traders that are not part of the group. And even if they're not part, all the activities that we engage in are for the good of all the traders, not just the members.
Thank you very much. Okay, we really need to bring this item to a close. So I think it has to be very, very brief.
Yeah. So I suppose my key question in all of this is what struck me in what one of the sentences in the previous deputations was when they said, we believe that public assets are best held in public control. So at the moment, the Water Corner is a public asset in terms of ownership by TfL, and what they were asking for is for that public asset to remain in public control, as in through the local council, and that's a strong demand. Obviously, and that's what I wanted perhaps to explore with you, is about how you feel about that in terms of the Community Benefit Society. Well, the council set up a Community Benefit Society in terms of some work that we did around housing, and it does take a very long time and it is complicated, and I totally appreciate what you're saying about that. So my follow-up question would be, if it's going to take a long period of time, which, you know, if things are to be done properly, you know, you have to make sure that that you don't cut corners, that you go through every possible due diligence, etc. What happens in the interim? Because my understanding is that, you know, the traders are in a difficult situation at the moment. They want a clear understanding of what's going to be happening in the future, and want a clear and secure pathway for their future, because it's all been in a balance for the last 20 years. And my final, and those are my questions, but I wanted to make a final point, which I think there was perhaps a misunderstanding between your slight surprise by Councillor Tucker's point about the professionalisation of campaigns, and I think that's a more general point. Actually, I don't think that is very specific to this campaign. I think that's a general point about campaigns like this, plans like this, where I don't agree with Councillor Hare on the point about language. I think the previous delegation articulated itself absolutely exceptionally, and I think that's really important to point out. But there would naturally be some kind of questions around genuine representation. So when you talk about the community, do you mean community activists, or how will you include people who are on 0 hours contracts, who work night shifts, who can't attend meetings, who won't necessarily be reading The Guardian, who won't necessarily be on social media, who live within the community but don't necessarily feel that they would even be aware that this Community Benefit Society existed? How would you engage with those people? And obviously the council has these challenges historically when we do consultations, when we try to get people involved. I suppose you would be starting from scratch. So I suppose, you know, how do we address that?
Okay, thank you. I mean, I don't know if anybody here went to any of the public meetings that informed the community plan and the workshops. I went to some of them, not all of them. They predated my involvement. The community plan was initiated by traders themselves. They held many meetings in the market, getting together at the end when the market shut, staying behind in the market space on their own time rather than going home, and working to understand the situation and explore their options. The Water Corner Community Coalition played a major role in then developing that plan and supporting the traders to do that. And Sue Penny might like to comment on that. All of that local community, you know, this is actually a really successful story of the opposite of campaign professionalisation. This has been led from the start by traders and local residents. You go back to 2003, and it was traders and local residents that were mobilising on this issue. Of course, along the way, many people have come and offered help, myself included. I am also a local resident, you know, and I bring certain skills to the table, and many other people have done the same. And I think, you know, we have to obviously find a way to do that that's respectful. But if we're going to do a community development, we need to draw on skills and resources. We need to build the CBS in a way that's democratic and involves everyone. I think we have a strong history to draw on. But for sure, what you've heard today suggests there is a lot of work to do. So yeah, there's a lot of work to do, but I recognise everything you're saying. You're correct to highlight these issues, and this is work. You know, with Granger gone, we should be, finally, the community should be able to get some money to do this work. The Granger plan has been a massive barrier, I'll be honest with you. And now that Granger is gone, hopefully we can get the money we need to actually do this work and make sure we are there. You know, the coalition was there every weekend selling plants, every weekend with flyers on the high street. So I would like to invite Sue to come in, please, Chair.
Sorry, Chair, could I have an answer on the question about public assets remaining in public control?
Okay, could you address?
It could be from Sue, so if Sue's going to come in, she might want to answer that.
Well, if somebody on the delegation could address that point, that would be useful.
Okay, I mean, I think it's been public authorities that proceeded with the Granger plan for the last 15 years. So I think the community, having had the guts and the stamina to develop its own plan and get planning permission and produce the studies to make the case, the community should be offered the chance to do the plan. Community benefit societies exist for precisely this sort of development. This is a complex community, as we've heard. There are market traders, there are local businesses, there are local residents. This always was about all of them, and they all need to be involved. And a community benefit society is the ideal vehicle for that. And it can bring in all sorts of resources, but it can partner with the council. It's critically important that this is a partnership with the council and with Transport for London. It doesn't mean that the council doesn't play a role. The council plays a key role, and actually, you know, through the support we've got from, you know, it's the Mayor of London, the GLA, that is their programme that is funding the Boosting Community Business programme. That is how we've got the support to develop the CBS. And there's a workshop that, you know, hopefully will be planned with council officers and council representatives to scope out the relationship and the role of the council in the CBS. That's work we still have to do. The council has a critically important role to play. The council has already given planning permission for this plan. The council has listed the market as an asset of community value. These are really important steps. And we really hope that we can count on the council support and work together to kind of move on from this phase, to get out from under the shadow of Granger and start to do this for real. And there's a lot of work to do. So, you know, hopefully we'll have the chance to talk again and things will have changed in a few months. We'll be in a different position. But perhaps Sue could come in if you want.
I can't see Sue. Oh, I can see her. I don't think she's trying to speak.
Sorry, Dominic, she might be an attendee, so you might need to just change her status.
Are you trying to speak, Sue? No. No, I don't think she is. Okay. All right. Sorry. Okay. Well, thank you very much for deputation again, and for staying so long and answering all the questions. Again, I'm not going to ask any questions myself because I think everything's been very well covered by the questions from the other panel members. And I'd just like to thank you both for coming today and presenting to us and answering our questions. Thank you. Okay, so as I said earlier, we are deep into the meeting and we've still got a lot to cover. But we're now going to move on to item 10 on the agenda, which is the Ward's Corner Scrutiny Review Recommendations Monitoring. So this is in the reports from page 33, and there are 4 recommendations that are set out. These are the recommendations that were both accepted by the Cabinet and that had actions that need monitoring. So these are all set out in the papers.
Just a point of order, Chair. I've noticed that we haven't gone on to we haven't done the minutes yet, or the matters arising. Are we going to do that after this
That's correct. We
item.
agreed.
That's
We
fine.
we agreed at the beginning, if you remember, to take this item after item 5,
Okay.
and then move on to the minutes after that.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Okay. So, as I said, there are 4 recommendations set out in the papers. The recommendation, the response from the Cabinet, and the current progress as at August this year. So, does anyone have any questions on any of those recommendations? Okay, sorry, it is deep. It's from page 33 in the agenda pack, I believe. Councillor Ibrahim, sorry, I gave you time.
Sorry, because I wanted to find the page because I'd had a look at it and I was obviously, I wanted to raise this in light of the deputation and in light of what's happened since these recommendations were made. And it appears to me that some of these recommendations are in a sense kind of overridden by what's kind of happened, may need to be looked at again. So there's a recommendation about an acting market facilitator, for example, and it mentions Granger. Well, Granger's not in the picture anymore. And obviously, is there, you know, there talks about establishments of partnership working groups, including overseeing Seven Sisters Market trader representation and selection processes. So I'm slightly concerned following some of what we've heard and how things have moved apace since these recommendations were made, whether the committee would consider doing some kind of an update review in light of what's happened since, because a lot of these recommendations are kind of moot points, yeah.
Okay, so your proposal is that, given that the situation has changed so much so rapidly,
Yeah.
that what kind of form are you proposing that?
Well, I'm not suggesting that we do something
review.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that we do something as detailed as what was done before, because much of the concerns and much of the issues would still be relevant that were in the body of the report that was originally done. But I think it would be slightly odd for the Scrutiny Committee to be monitoring recommendations of an era before the current developments and before what we heard tonight, which I think are significant. So perhaps we could do a short time-limited scrutiny review. I don't know how fellow panel members feel about that.
Okay, so I take that point, and I'm also aware that we've heard 2 deputations this evening, one of which is calling for the council to take control of the management and take the long-term lease on the site, and the other one is calling for the council. Well, it's not calling for the council to do that, but it's calling for the council to support the soon to be formed Community Benefit Society in pushing forward the community plan. So perhaps that should also form part of the scrutiny review, the update review, if that's what we're going to be calling it. Okay. First of all, panel members. First of all, so Charles, Councillor Ajay, I saw you first.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, my view. I'm not sure if we should be having another scrutiny review. What would you be reviewing? That's the first question. In terms of this update, I mean, The third column actually provides information, it's the current progress as at August 2021. Given where we are with the withdrawal of Granger, you're right. I think this should be noted, and we move on, and think about the next steps in terms of the deputation when you talk about the CBS and the first deputation about the issues within the market traders, the conflict, as it were, between them. Obviously, that needs to be resolved. Yeah, so that would be my point, because having gone through this, I have not really seen anything tangible in the update that actually meets with the current state of affairs in terms of the market. So that's why I said we note this, because there's nothing further to be done in terms of where Granger still in the business. Then I would say, oh, yes, let's go on and do some other follow-up stuff. But they've moved on. Why are we going or trying to use council resources to follow this up when it's no longer required?
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sucker, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, well, we do have the relevant cabinet member here, and I think it would be a useful opportunity to ask some questions to follow up some of the issues that were raised at the delegations that we've just heard. I do think it would be great to have some more time to look deeper into some of the issues that have been raised over a longer period, but I'm just worried about the time parameters, because I presume that TfL are looking to move forward, and I've seen the proposed structures which TfL are currently presenting. TfL presumably are looking for some kind of consensus or agreement to move forward, and it would be a missed opportunity if we lost the opportunity for Scrutiny to make its points and ask its questions and perhaps even take a view. And meanwhile, the clock ticked out. So one thing we could do is express a view here, but I think before we do so, I think there's some questions that could be asked of Councillor Gordon.
Okay, Councillor Ibrahim, you have something else to say here. Oh, apologies, I didn't see you.
Thanks, Mina. I agree that there's probably nothing to scrutinise at present because it's all going to be new, so to speak. But I think that what is in here has been communicated again, that there are communication issues, that there are bullying issues, that there are whispering campaigns, and that, from my experience of the market and what's happened, seems to have been ongoing. So I think there's recommendations and actions that we can take from here for whatever the new structure is going forward to make sure that traders are spoken with, that they are engaged with, and that doesn't continue. So yeah, Granger, not relevant anymore, but those relationships and that communication with people and the traders particularly is really important because it's been a disaster.
Yeah, so I just want to be clear. I think we've heard quite a lot of information here today. And when I'm talking about a scrutiny kind of review, I'm not talking about over a 3-month, 4-month period. What I'm reluctant to do and what I think is bad practice is to hear two perspectives and then shoot off from the hip recommendations based on the information that we've had today and not having the opportunity to kind of discuss this, think it through and think through proper kind of specific recommendations. I don't want us to shoot from the hip because I think that my point that I made earlier is where councils can have a bad role, actually, is that when we go in kind of, wading in, all guns blazing and, like a bull in a china shop, I don't want us to do that. I think we've done that in the past, actually, and I want to avoid that. I think that's part of why we're here today and why we heard that very, very difficult situation. I want, as a scrutiny committee, for us perhaps to just spend a week, a couple of meetings. I don't think Councillor Gordon needs to answer some of these questions today, because I think obviously she's only just heard it as well. I mean, if she'd like to, that's different, but I think everybody needs the opportunity to make sure this is done properly, to give full consideration and respect to what we've heard today, to go away and spend a couple of weeks or two and come back to the next meeting. And I think absolutely Councillor Tucker's right. We don't want to do something which ticks out the clock on anything that potentially needs to be agreed, but we basically need to make sure that anything we say and recommend is thought out.
Okay, Councillor Hare, you're next.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I don't think any of us are really far apart on this. The fundamental aims, objectives of what we're doing, we want it to be democratic, we want it to work for all the traders, we want to have a successful community trust, a successful project, all of these things, but they're quite broad brush aims, and it seems to me that it would be quite hard to do a scrutiny when there is so much in progress. But I do think that we might, as a scrutiny body, recommend that there's some very, very broad brush aims, that what is achieved is a democratic organisation with, full opportunity and preferably actual involvement. And we might ask the cabinet member to come back with proposals on that, or we might set one or two targets, or we might try and add to the the actual beg your pardon, I'm just trying to get the term, add to the recommendations with these sort of quite broad brush aims, because I think it will be very difficult for us to be precise, and it would be the wrong thing for us to try and do it in that way. So perhaps rather than having a further scrutiny or additional scrutiny, to try and set the council's position, i.e. democratic, successful, involving people, to set those very broad brush aims, and to require that there's a report back from either the body itself or from the cabinet member.
Thanks, Chair. Maybe I didn't make myself clear earlier. We've got agenda item 10. Obviously, on the back of agenda item 10, which is this report, we had the deputation. Yeah. Now, in terms of the appendix attached to, which is Appendix 1, is the update from a previous review. I'm suggesting, having read it, that there is nothing further in terms of that review, given that Ranger is no more. Yeah. So now, in terms of the deputation itself, yeah, things that we've picked up from the deputations, yes, we can make recommendations, part of either a scrutiny review, if you want to go down that road, or something to the cabinet to say, well, having heard the deputation, we think the council should get involved in X or not get involved in Y. Yeah, that's fine. That's why. But in terms of this particular stuff, Appendix 1, I don't see that there is anything from this bit here that we should be.
That was clear from what you said. So I think that's clear. So we kind of have two separate things here. One is your proposal that we note what's in here and we don't take it any further because the situation has changed so much. Yes. The second thing is a proposal with having heard the two deputations this evening, we don't make recommendations based on that now, but that we have some time to consider that. I think what we haven't decided yet is what form that consideration takes, whether we do it as a kind of update scrutiny or we just think about it a bit and bring it back to the next meeting. I think that's what we need to decide. So I suppose what we could do is do it as a kind of one-day update scrutiny in the time that we've got between this and our next meeting, which is actually on the 7th of November. It's quite soon. It's 7 weeks from now.
Chair, yeah, I mean, I think we don't have to agree that now we can go away as a committee and discuss that. I don't agree that we should make broad brush proposals that can be driven a coach and horses through. I think we need to be actually quite specific in what we, because the role of scrutiny, Chair, is to scrutinise decision making. Okay, is to scrutinise what decision making is made that potentially could have an impact, whether it's on the fiduciary duties of the council or impact on the community. That's not broad brush. That needs to be specific, and that's our role. And I think in order to do that properly, we can't do that here off the cuff tonight. If it means a one-day session or a visit to go and speak to the traders to get a full idea of exactly what they think the role of the council should be in all of this, to hear from people, I think we need to take on our duty to do what we're here to do, and is to scrutinise decision making, because there has been lots of rumours that have been spreading around about the role of the council. We need to make sure we find out exactly what is going on, and we need the opportunity to do that. I don't think tonight is the right time to ask officers questions or the cabinet member questions off the cuff, unprepared. I don't think we can get the best of the, because our interest should be to get the best for the community and for the traders, and having a 2-week opportunity to do that is the right way to do it.
Okay. Before we finish this, Councillor Tucker, you've got one more.
Yes. So on hearing Councillor Ibrahim's point, I do agree absolutely 100%. My worry was purely about the clock ticking out. If there is any possibility of doing something substantial within, say, a 2-week period, we might actually consult TfL and ask them what their time frame is, because the documents I've seen from TfL don't actually have any date lines on them, so or none in the near future anyway. So as long as what we say can make a difference to what TfL does, to what the council does, then absolutely, yeah, let's do a more substantial, a more considered piece of work.
What's been done so far.
Yeah.
Chair, could I?
Yes, certainly.
Yeah, thank you. Because I've obviously been sitting here, and I'm cabinet member responsible for this position, so I would like to have the opportunity of updating the panel with what we've done so far and responding to some of the points. If you'd allow me to, I'd be grateful.
Chair, I'm just conscious of time, and that wasn't on the agenda.
I thought that the agenda item is Ward's Corner, and I'm the cabinet member responsible for it.
The agenda item was the scrutiny
technically
review.
The agenda item.
Could we speak through the chair? Because at the moment people are jumping in.
At the moment. Thank you. So the agenda item is the monitoring of the scrutiny recommendations on Ward's Corner. So there isn't a report on Ward's Corner. However, if you can speak briefly on what you want to speak on, you just a couple of minutes, just to make a couple of points, then that's fine.
Well, thank you, Chair. I mean, I think it sort of deserves quite more than a couple of points, really. I just want to keep it to as quickly as I can in the time that you're allowing me. I mean, I really do think it merits a lot longer discussion, and I thought that's what we were going to have as a discussion. I want to make it clear, first of all, that the council's position is that we support the trust and that we support the community plan. The community plan is the vehicle of the trust. It has got planning permission since 2019. We have issued joint statements with TfL, and we are absolutely making sure that we are driving this forward now. It's an extraordinarily exciting project that we can embark on now, that we've got a way in which we can move forward. The council's ambitions are fully in line with what the community plan can achieve. I think that what you're suggesting is that there is, we can hear that there is division at the market. And what we should be doing is making sure that we can heal that division, such as it is. There's been a massive division going on for the past 15 and plus years between the community and Granger, and that has been extraordinarily damaging. Now what we've got is an opportunity to move forward with a very, very exciting possibility of what we can achieve, which completely marries in to the ambitions of the council for Seven Sisters as an area, to make that a vibrant community for the Latin American community. It'll be the only one in London after the Elephant and Castle has been closed. We've got something like 250,000 Latinos in the UK, and there is not a community to which they can go, and this is what we can provide. I want to answer some of the questions about. Sorry, this is going completely aside from the agenda. I wanted to answer some of the questions that were raised during the course of deputation.
To be honest, you are the cabinet member. It's true, but the deputation was presenting to the panel, and the panel were to ask questions.
And Chair, if I may, I would like to respond to some of the issues that have been raised during the course of the question.
But it's not for the cabinet member to respond to a deputation to the scrutiny panel. If the deputation was to cabinet, then it would be for the cabinet member to respond.
Chair, can I just say for the record that what I feel is that you're actually stopping me from responding to questions that have been raised by members of the public on this. Chair, they were questions to the panel, and this is a scrutiny panel meeting, and I think that's how it should correctly be run, and we shouldn't vary the process. This is why I made the point that I thought Councillor Gordon would want to answer questions, and that they shouldn't be answered off the cuff, and that at the next opportunity, when we have a process where we consider our recommendations, then the cabinet member can come and answer, because we're here to scrutinise the decisions of the cabinet, and it's not for the cabinet to respond to a deputation. This is a scrutiny panel.
Okay, thank you for that. So,
can I please appeal to the chair if you let me to speak?
I'd
object to that, Chair.
Well, I think we're getting a conversation, and I would like things to go through the chair, because I was actually interested to hear what was in the process of being said. Now, I don't know quite why there is such an objection to that, because the process to me does not seem so transparently unfair. However, I think if we have a clear date at which this can be gone through with the opportunity for a cabinet member to speak, then that would be not against.
So the proposal is that we don't make any decisions, any recommendations based on what we've heard tonight, because we've heard two opposing views, and we need time to digest that. We need further information. We are very pressed for time now this evening. It's now 8:40, so I think the suggestion that we defer this discussion to a further special meeting that can happen as soon as possible, and at that meeting we can have a proper discussion on this, because we've spent close on 2 hours now, and very fruitful 2 hours actually, listening to the deputations, asking questions to the deputations, and hearing quite full answers from the deputations. What we don't have time for tonight is to repeat that process in a back and forth with the decision maker. So that, I'm afraid, will have to be deferred to another meeting. This is not, let me stress, this is not an attempt to shut you down or to stop you from speaking. This is just that we have other items to deal with on the agenda, and we're not going to be able to deal with this. If you were to respond in full to all these points, there would then have to be a back and forth, questions, responses. So I think the suggestion that's been made is a good one, and I think you know we should agree as a panel to defer this to another date. It should be as soon as possibly can be arranged. Councillor Raju.
Yeah, I agree to the point you made. I mean, I would say that we've been fortunate this evening to have had the cabinet member responsible present. Normally, you would have had to listen because the stuff is to the scrutiny panel, not to the cabinet or cabinet member. Yeah, with all due respect. Then those questions go to the cabinet member and let him or her respond in writing. You've had the opportunity to listen, and I think in terms of your response, and as a result of we haven't got the time, maybe you could put your responses in writing to the scrutiny panel. There's that point. But the point I was going to make, Chair, I was on page 40, which is to the appendix. There are some typographical errors there in terms of the date. It says 13th October 2021. But when you read it, it's talking about 2020. So it's just those bits there that should be picked up in the report. That's all. I wasn't going to get involved in that bit, but in terms of where we are, I just felt that from a process and protocol point of view, that's how it should happen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, so apologies, Aisha.
Chair, sorry, just to kind of flag up some logistical things as well, just in terms of if you are going to take this forward, you'll need still to seek agreement from the main overview and scrutiny committee. So just need to keep that in mind. And there is provision for responses from the cabinet as part of committee reports as well.
Does that mean that we need to seek authority from OSC before we can hold a meeting?
I think we should have a report to OSC just to say if you are concerned as overview and scrutiny that agree the work plan, and I think the next meeting is the 7th of October. So I think you would need to put a paper together, and we would need to get officer comments on adding a new item to the work plan. Okay, all right. I think we need to deal with these kind of logistical. Thank you very much for that, Aisha. But I think we need to deal with these kind of logistical details outside of this meeting. So that's an action point to deal with that. But thank you very much for raising that. Okay, so just on this item, then we're going to note the report, the appendix, with those typographical errors that have been noticed. So if those can be noted, and we're not going to take this particular scrutiny review recommendations further any forward. We're gonna reconvene at some point, depending on how that's going to depend on what authority we get from OSC. Okay, so can we move on? Next.
Chair, could I just ask a question? I just wanted to know what agenda items you want me to speak on, because I understood I was being asked to speak on Ward's Corner. I hear what you're saying on that, and that you're not allowing me to speak on that. What agenda items, because there's no cabinet member questions on the agenda, what agenda items do you want me to stay for the discussion on Broadwater Farm, and will I be asked questions?
There is an item on the Stapleford consultation.
Chair. So it wasn't. So the issue wasn't about the cabinet member's response to the report, because you allowed her obviously to respond to that, and that's fine. That's the committee report. It was the second part where we objected was a response to the deputation, because the deputation was to the committee, but to the report, and that was actually in there. Then you did give a 2-minute opportunity for a response. It was when the cabinet member wanted to respond to the deputation, and we felt that the deputation was to the committee.
Sorry, Chair, just to clarify that, you know, yes, I could have responded to some of the items raised by the deputation, but I could also have provided an update as to what the executive's decision is as to in relation towards corner. That's what I would have liked to have done.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I did give you a 2-minute opportunity to do
Well,
that.
I've got other updates that I thought the panel would have been interested in, and some response about how we can deal with the market.
We need to move on now. Right, so the next item on the agenda is Homes for Haringey repair contracts. Minutes, apologies, yes, we do have the minutes, yes. So we need to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Okay, wow, it's 10 to 9 and we haven't approved the minutes yet. Okay, so the minutes of the previous meeting are from page 1 of the agenda pack. So first of all, do we have any comments on the accuracy of the minutes? Not having heard any comments on the accuracy of the minutes, I will ask if there are any matters arising from these minutes.
So, Chair, I had a matter arising, and I thought it would have been a good opportunity as the cabinet member was here to ask about the High Road West ballot, but it seems that she's left the room, so I'll leave it for then.
Okay. But that's under this item, this current item.
No, it's under matters arising from the minutes.
That's the item we're on now.
Yeah, but I'm conscious that she's not here.
So, what?
Well, I could ask the officer, but yeah.
Okay.
I'm presuming she's coming back.
Well, I would assume so.
Could somebody maybe then call her?
What is your question?
My question is regarding High Road West.
So,
It's regarding the High Road West ballot.
Right. Okay. Do you have something under the minutes?
Yes. Just on page 9, it says agree that the panel recommends to cabinet member planning. I'm just going to ask if that has been done. Page 9 minutes.
Okay, so this was the recommendation that we made in the last meeting that the cabinet member for planning, licensing and housing services, who's also here tonight, changes the wording of the criteria for insourcing to make clear that in-house delivery should be the default option. So do we have an update on the progress of that recommendation, please? Councillor Bevan.
No, mine's working. Mine's fine.
Oh, it's working again now.
So my officer, Judith Page, is online if she would like to open this item, and then I'll come in and add some context and answer any questions.
Is Judith Page?
I am here. Sorry, I am here. Sorry, Okay, so this is an update on the insourcing of repairs contract. So Homes for Haringey runs its own in-house repair service, and in the main we deliver most of our work through that repair service.
Sorry, just to be clear, the recommendation was about the wording for the criteria for, it's about a matter of wording.
Oh, okay, no, that's been accepted.
The criteria for insourcing, what was noted was that the insourcing was kind of being dealt with as an option, but not necessarily the default option. And the recommendation of the panel was that the wording should be changed to make it clear that in-house delivery should be the default option unless it can be demonstrated that a better service or value for money can be achieved through alternative work means. So I suppose that it's a very simple yes/no answer. Has that been done yet? And if not, what's the timescale? Or has it been rejected?
It's been accepted and it's been done.
Okay, thank you. Right, and Councillor Ibrahim had a question
yes, on the
arising
high road
from the minutes for Councillor Gordon.
So it's to do with the High Road West item, and obviously they've got the outcome of the ballot now, and narrow, but it's an kind of a support for the scheme. So obviously one of the concerns that I've seen raised by the independent advisor was that the ballot period was such a short period of time. I think I saw something along the lines of 2 weeks. Is that correct? I'm seeing you shaking your head, so I'm not sure that that is correct. I believe that that's something that I saw in one of the community press. So what was the window of opportunity for voting for the ballot?
I think I'll have to ask, to get it absolutely precise, I'll have to ask the director to come in on that, but it was definitely not 2 weeks. I've got a feeling it was more than 3 or 4 weeks. I can't recall.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Yeah, the ballot period was 3 weeks, 21 days, which was in line with the GLA guidance on ballots. Sarah Lovell is on the call if you want to ask any further questions about the detail on that.
And what was the lead up period after the decision to the ballot in terms of engagement with the landlord offer?
Well, I mean, as you know, the ballot is a culmination of engagement over a long period, which goes back some time. And obviously the cabinet decision to proceed to ballot, I'm trying to remember exactly when that was now, but we did have a number of weeks.
It was at the end of July.
Yeah, and the team were out talking to residents about the landlord offer. We sent the landlord offer in advance of the ballot period.
How many weeks in advance?
I'd have to ask Sarah to come in with the precise details, if that's okay.
Because that might be the period that I saw referred to.
Hiya. So in line with the ballot, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, sorry, it's Sarah here. In line with the ballot guidance, the GLA guidance, we issued the landlord offer 2 weeks ahead of initiating the actual ballot process. So it was advertised 2 weeks before, and then the ballot took place for 3 weeks. But obviously we've been consulting residents on the details of the landlord offer since the beginning of this year. When we undertook consultation on the local lettings policy.
Yeah. So after the decision, there was 2 weeks. Had the decision been earlier, would there have been more time?
We could have done, but the GLA guidance is that is issued 2 weeks. 2 weeks before a ballot.
So is that the minimum period or the maximum?
That's the period that they give. That's the period that they give. And I believe that's a recommended period. And I need to confirm whether it's a minimum.
Could that be sent to the committee? Because I'm raising this because it was a concern that was raised in the press.
We'll get a written answer to you on that.
Okay, great. So that's an action point to get a written answer to that point. Thank you very much. Okay, anything else from the minutes? Councillor Hare.
Just briefly, the employment.
Matt, sorry, can I just interrupt a moment, Matt? I can't hear what the officers are saying. It's double. And in fact, I'm coming out double as well. I did email you about this, but I can't hear what the officers are saying.
We can hear you very well.
Yeah,
can
and
you hear?
I can also hear it back myself on me. So, but I can hear all of you. I can hear those in the room.
Okay, so you as a somebody joining virtually you're having problems hearing other people who are joining virtually then, I guess. Okay.
So I could hear what Aisha was saying. But I'm getting echo on me as well, so I don't know what to do.
Okay. I don't know if okay, I will have to leave that to see if any of the technical stuff can do anything to help you with that. But thanks for letting me know. But can somebody see if anything can be done to help Councillor Hearn hear what's being said? I think she's mainly having a problem hearing other people who are joining virtually. Okay, Councillor Hare.
Thank you, Chair. It was just to ask for a quick update on how the employment and land study is progressing. This was promised that some work might have been done by September. And it could just be a quick note via Dominic.
Employment and land study, yes. So
this is a matter arising from the minutes.
Yes, no, I'm aware of that. So, Councillor Bevan, do you have a response on that? Can we get a written response then, please, on what's happening with the employment and land study?
Can I just, we'll get an update. Sorry, I stood down the planning team earlier when you deferred the St Anne's report, but we'll get an update for the next meeting. Sorry, in writing.
Thank you very much. No more comments on the minutes, nothing else arising, so we can agree the minutes from the last meeting. Yeah, okay, that must be a record 2.5 hours into the meeting. We agree the minutes of the previous meeting. Okay, right, so now we do move on to the Homes for Haringey repairs item. So, John, are you going to introduce this item?
Well, I'll just say a few words before the director comes in. So basically, we accept that there are improvements that need to be made to the repairs operation on Broadwater Farm, which obviously hasn't been helped by 15 months of COVID. And
hold on, this isn't the Broadwater Farm repairs issue. No, we're currently on item 7, which is Homes for Haringey repair contracts.
Oh, I thought we dealt with that. I thought you'd accepted that the definition that you sought had been agreed.
The report is on pages 11 to 24 of the pack. If it's not you introducing it, then we can have
the subcontractor use report.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I thought the directors confirmed that what you want is what is being done.
No, Chair, that was in the matters arising from the previous minutes, John. This is a separate item.
So there was a question asked, John, of you. Yeah.
Could you put your microphone on, please, Councillor Ajay, so people can hear?
I'm doing well, John. There was a question asked if you accepted a recommendation from the scrutiny meeting previously, which you passed on to the officer. Obviously, you accepted it, which the officer confirmed. That was in the minutes. Now is the main report. So if you either want to introduce it or you get the officer to introduce it, because we are now dealing with the main report, which is item 7.
Well, I'd ask my officer to introduce that and then I will come in after her.
Okay, Councillor Ibrahim, did you have something to raise?
Chair, I just want to reiterate this, and I made this point at the last meeting, and I'm getting slightly concerned again, just to ensure that, I mean, are Cabinet members getting these reports in advance so that they can read them before they come to the meeting? Because obviously they go into the public domain a week in advance, but I'm just concerned, again, we've got an example of a report that's come forward, and it doesn't appear as though the Cabinet member, on this occasion a different one, is aware of it.
Okay, you've made that point previously, so you've made it again. Okay, thanks. Right, who's going to actually introduce this report?
That would be Judith.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Hello. Yeah. Hi.
Can you hear me? I am getting the echo that everyone else online is getting, so it's slightly difficult to present, but I'll try. So I'll take the report as read. Really, the main parts of it is we do deliver most of the repairs and maintenance service through our own in-house service. But subcontractor use had increased from the you can see from the graph, particularly during COVID. So generally, we are looking to reduce that. We're doing a lot of analysis of what we can do, except for specialist contractors, and also where we need top up of resources during peak times of use. The main area we outsource is gas currently, and that's going to be reviewed this year and brought back with recommendations based on based on a review on the idea that ideally we should bring it in-house, but we need to look at all the feasibility on that. And the first break in the contract is 2022. So, and the only other area was the AMI contract for the council's hard FM services, which we've been delivering for just over a year now.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Bevan, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, just to mention again the AMI contract, which is now being incorporated into the repair service, which is quite a big operation. And also in the past, the repair service has been assessed to deal with the average workload, because I do remember some time ago, a reduction in the repair service staffing was done on the assumption it would deal with the average workload, and if there were any peaks, external outsourced resource would be sought to deal with that. So that was a decision that was actually made by the council, I think some time ago. And if you note on page 13, there's a project now to reassess the workload to try and ensure that we can deal with more of the issues when service peaks in demand unexpectedly. So that's an ongoing project. I mean, as Judith said, the speciality services, it wouldn't be really practical to insource really special services that are used only occasionally. It would not be cost effective. The only way that could be done if some organisation like the GLA or London Council was to set up some type of operation like that, and those services could be provided London-wide, that would probably make more sense. And as it says here, the gas service is planned to be insourced in November 21. And as I was on the Board of Homes for Haringey, I'll just say to you that all the gas services would have been insourced by now, but when we planned to do that some time ago, there was talk then that Homes for Haringey might be brought in-house, and the management team thought that they couldn't risk or wouldn't have the capacity to deal with the insourcing of Homes for Haringey back to the council and changing all the gas contractors, because you can't mess up on gas contractors. You have to get it 100% perfect, but it is our commitment and my commitment and the officers that all the services will be in-house, as I say, excepting for really specialist operations. You have my guarantee on that.
Okay, thanks for that. Can I just ask that anyone who's here in the room with their laptops open, if they're logged into the Teams call, please have your microphone muted, because we think that's what might be happening, what might be causing the echo for. And also, it's really important that we only have one microphone activated at any one time, because that would also cause an echo for those joining virtually. So hopefully, if we can keep those two things. Okay, thanks very much for the introduction. Do we have any questions on this report? Councillor Tucker, I knew you would have questions on this one.
Yes, I definitely do. So firstly, I'd very much like to welcome the review that's going to be carried out regarding the gas and hot water and gas installation contracts. And I do hope that that does result in the service coming in-house to Haringey. Can I just clarify regarding the figure that's given of 16% of all, only 16% of all HRS repairs being carried out by subcontractors? Because what I hear anecdotally has the feeling that it's much, much more than that. I am very reassured that it's only 16%. But can I just clarify that that is 16% of all the actual manual operations carried out by Homes for Haringey, right? All the actual practical material operations carried out by Homes for Haringey. So the concept of the repairs includes basically everything. I'm getting a yes for that. So, and then I do have a brief follow-up question after that.
So Judith is nodding yes to that.
Just to say, when we're talking about that, we're talking about responsive repairs, not planned work. So obviously replacement of kitchens and bathrooms, things like that are excluded from that figure, but all the day-to-day repairs are within that figure.
expertise and experience, and that it would take some time to get to the point where our DLO could do that kind of work. So that isn't in the plan, and we're sorry about the feedback, by the way. We're focusing more on the things that we do think are actually achievable in terms of insourcing and building the capacity of the DLO.
Yeah, thanks for that. There does seem to be a problem with your mic specifically, David. I'm not sure why. Should we shift our mics? Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that response. Anyway, right. One more follow-up before I move on to Councillor Hare.
Yeah, just a brief follow-up to the response there. I would suggest that, given that we are going to be delivering thousands of council homes, and it's going to be steady work, and the council doesn't need to make a profit, unlike contractors, and the council can provide steady trade union organised work with good pay and good pensions, that this is exactly what we ought to be looking at going forward. And I would suggest that the administration start looking into this.
Okay, that's a suggestion. I guess that's not a question, so it doesn't need a response, but the suggestion has been made. Councillor Hare is next.
Thanks, Chair. It's a very quick question. At what point in 2022 will the insourcing of gas-related work be reviewed? That's point 2.4. And how long might you expect that review to take? And is there any way that the decision-making can be, if you like, the decision-making tree can be set up before, you know, in order to make sure that we're just not sitting there with no clear way of either doing the work with external contractors or insourced? It would be a shame to be sort of sitting in that interregnum for too long. And can we therefore just try and shorten that process, whatever the resulting decision is?
Yeah, I mean,
Do you want me to come in, David? Do you want me to come in, David?
Can you hear us? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, we can hear you now. So, the break in the contract is actually October 2022. So we're taking the review this year because we believe 9 months would be the correct amount of time to enable us to insource the gas if we needed to do. Gas normally take about 6 months once you make the decision.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Ajay, you had a question.
Yeah, it's just if we could be provided with some outline dates of when, you know, the point that Councillor Tucker made about insourcing. I know it's early days, but if given that we've been talking about this for some time, if we could be provided with an indication in terms of dates, indicated dates planned, and when this is likely to happen going forward.
Okay, so is that something that the panel could be provided with?
Yes, I've got an indicative time. Yes, I've got an indicative time.
But can I just check, are we going back to the proposal from Councillor Tucker that we look at insourcing the new build programme from contractors? Because I think, as I sort of answered to Councillor Tucker, that there are no plans at this stage to do that. So I think, you know, I'm happy to provide a response on the reasons why we're not currently looking at that, and why we don't think it'd be the right approach for the council to take at this stage. But certainly there aren't any timescales on that. We are obviously doing direct delivery, but we use contractors. I think is the point. We don't use our in-house team at Homes for Haringey.
That's fine. I think it would be useful to have that, as you suggested, in writing. Are you able to let us know when you're likely to provide that?
We can do that within 10 working days.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions on this item? I can't see any. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We are moving swiftly on. Try and dispense with the last couple of items on the agenda. So we've got an agenda item in two parts now. Broadwater Farm. So Broadwater Farm, we've got two reports. Let's start with report A. An update about the consultation of residents in the Stapleford block. So this came in an appendix. Who's going to introduce this? Are you going to introduce this, Councillor Gordon?
I didn't think I was introducing it, but I can attempt to. But obviously this is a decision that's going to Cabinet tomorrow night. So you've been provided with the report that is going to go ahead in the Cabinet meeting tomorrow night. So it reiterates the fact that there was consultation, S105 consultation with the residents as to whether the Stapleford North wing, just the sort of north wing of the Stapleford block, whether the residents there wanted to refurbish or demolish those particular homes, just 21 of them, or 24 of them, sorry. There was 100% return in that consultation, and it was 2-1 in favour of demolish that block. So that recommendation is going forward to the Cabinet tomorrow.
Okay, thanks for that. I mean, I suppose my concern with this, I'm trying to find out where it's set out in here. But there were two options provided, and then there was kind of the opportunity to suggest other options, which were even listed, but somehow, in effect, it appeared, because there were just two options being provided, and one was demolition, and the other one was sorry, it was not demolition, but it was renovation, but no option for temporary rehousing during the demolition works on the other blocks, and that somehow seemed to be saying if you want to be to not have to live in your homes while this demolition work is going on and suffer that you have to vote for demolition. It seemed that maybe this wasn't the best way of carrying out the ballot. It's kind of like conflating the two issues of getting the of the demolition ballot and whether these residents who need work doing to their homes, if they're not going to be demolished, whether they're going to get that, and that maybe it would have been better to separate those two things out and not link the two decisions together.
Thanks. I know this has been raised, and it's going to be raised as part of deputation tomorrow night as well. But there has been an extensive response from the director on this issue. Actually, it was raised in the consultation documents in advance that that would have been an option. Nobody had sort of raised it with the officers prior to that, but it was put forward as an option, and there was room to sort of say if that option was a preferred option. Nobody did that, and they voted as I outlined before in a 2-1 in favour of demolition. I don't know if David Sherrington is on the call, or the director here can answer the points, because you did answer in a letter that came forward.
Thank you. Can I just make one other point, which I think is an important one? The exercise we just carried out was a Section 105 consultation. It was not a ballot. And we made it clear that the option that was suggested was an option that residents could tell us that they wanted. And actually, we made it clear that residents could answer in any way they wanted it. It wasn't a simple yes/no question. Clearly, the next stage will be to ballot residents on Broadwater Farm, and that will be a yes/no question in the way that it was on Love Lane. But I just want to be clear that the consultation exercise we just carried out was not a ballot.
Thanks for that, and I understand it's not a ballot. Obviously, we've got a lot of information about stuff that's been provided by people making comments. But what would be interesting for me would be to see is that been included in the papers? Sorry, how it was actually presented in the consultation documents, because the way the question that was being asked is set out in the papers, it looks to me like you're kind of being given two options and then separately being given, oh, you can add other options which might be this, this, and this, and yet. To my mind, there were three or more options, and yet two were singled out as that's how it looks. But I can't be clear because I'm not seeing how it was actually presented to residents, unless I'm missing something in the papers.
Can I suggest that David Sherrington comes in and actually takes you through what was in the consultation document? He is on the call, and the wording that was used, or Sarah Lovell, because I've just heard from David that his Teams has crashed at the wrong moment. Is Sarah on the call? No.
Chair, just in the interim, I think the position is explained really clearly in the letter that went from the director in response to this items, actually. So I think that is in your pack. So the answer to your question is actually included in the pack if you read the director's letter.
Okay. The consultation document did have wording that made it explicitly clear that if residents wanted the option of being moved out of their flats whilst the works were taking place and then moved back in, they could tell us that that option was wanted, because it comes back to this point, we didn't ask a binary choice in this consultation document, so it left all options open. It also allowed for residents to suggest a different solution. That was really clear. And also, I think the other thing I would note is that the team actually went out and spoke to every resident, because it was a small sample size. We did get out and have a lot of conversations with people.
Okay, thanks for that. But it would be useful, I think, because we've got the consultation report, but we don't actually have the consultation document here. So I think it would be useful if that could be shared with the panel. Councillor Ibrahim.
So I'd like a bit of clarification about, obviously this is a consultation, but was it a ballot? And I'll follow up on that. And so I suppose my question to the cabinet member would be, obviously previously, one of the challenges around having a binary ballot related to the Northold block and the Tangmere block were related to the immediate health and safety concerns, and that was accepted by the GLA as not requiring a ballot. And I know that when there is X amount of properties that are going to be balloted, then there isn't, the rules are slightly different on that. So I'm not suggesting any rules have been broken, but I'm aware that the cabinet member previously has expressed very strong views about having a yes/no binding ballot on demolition, and in this case it's not demolition that's related to health and safety. So I'd like to hear a bit more about why in this case it's been different.
Yeah, so it was a consultation, it wasn't a ballot. There will be a ballot and that will be on whether the scheme should go ahead or not. Yes, no ballot. If any, I think David Sheraton might have got his teams back now, so if he wants to add anything to that.
Apologies. I lost my teams at the critical moment. So yeah, this is a Section 105 consultation, which is what we're required to do when we're making any changes, significant changes to people's housing management. The next stage following the Cabinet report is for a ballot to be held with all residents on Broadwater Farm on the preferred scheme. So the scheme that we've been developing with the architects, with the residents and stakeholders, is what we will put to all residents on Broadwater Farm to seek their approval, so we can take forward the building of new homes on the estate, but also the demolition and reprovision of homes within the Stapleford North block. So the ballot is currently planned for later this year, and that will allow us to comply with the GLA requirements. We got an exemption from the GLA on the Tangmere and Northolt ballot requirement, but did commit at the time to still ballot residents to ensure that we had their support for the designs that we developed.
So my question is, the exemption was on Northolt and Tangmere. Does that exemption include Stapleford North?
No, it doesn't include Stapleford North. That just covers Tangmere and Northolt, and so therefore when we do the ballot, that will incorporate Stapleford North residents as well to make sure we're complying with the GLA ballot requirements.
That's quite clear. So if there was a ballot again of Stapleford North and they decided to vote against demolition, then that would be binding.
That's correct. But when we do the ballot, the GLA's requirements are such that you have to ballot the whole estate on a small scheme like this. So yes, if there is a no vote, then we will need to look at what the council's options are in terms of the designs that are done. But clearly the ballot gives people an opportunity to say no to the proposals that we're putting forward.
Okay. Right, Councillor Tucker, I think you're the only person who's indicated so far.
I'm not sure it has answered Councillor Ibrahim's question, because I just want to clarify, are we talking about a ballot of Stapleford residents or a ballot of the Broadwater Farm estate as a whole, in which the demolition and reconstruction of Staplehood is part? So there's not going to be a separate ballot of people living in Staplehood of whether their particular block gets demolished.
Just to answer that, sorry, David, I'll just come in. It is the whole estate who will be balloted, and that's in line with the GLA ballot guidance. But I think perhaps that's one of the reasons we decided to sort of do this pre-consultation, because we did very clearly want to know what the view of Stapleford was as well.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Barnes.
I just want to ask a question about the forthcoming ballot and how that will be run by the council, because there have been allegations on Love Lane where there was a campaign for a yes vote, so to speak. And so will it be more neutral this time, and have lessons been learned from how that was approached?
Well, I think it's it's a completely different set of circumstances on Broadwater Farm. What we're going to be getting on Broadwater Farm is, if the proposal goes ahead, then we will be getting a huge redevelopment of the whole scheme, which will be 100% council homes, and it's completely different. I think there's less controversy if you think, but obviously people will be given the choice. I've heard a lot of comments on social media about what may or may not have happened on Love Lane, and I'm quite clear that the GLA guidance and our own councillor protocols were carried out in the Love Lane estate.
Okay, thanks. One more question.
Mine's actually just an observation, and it will be very different because I think obviously with Love Lane, Councillor Barnes, the previous many years ago, people were housed there in temporary accommodation, which made it a very, very different situation. Tangmere and Norfolk have not been used in that way, and I think that makes it far less kind of complex than what arose with unfortunately not anything any of us supported in terms of what eventually ended up happening with Love Lane, where you had a whole group of temporary accommodation tenants who were put in a very, very difficult position.
But either way, it's not for the council to push for a vote in one particular way or other, whether that's yes or no, or whether that's scheme A, B or C. It's to stand back and be neutral and let the residents choose. That would be my view.
I think the council should promote a preferred scheme, but I think what you're right about is how that's gone about in terms of I think what the specific allegations were of people collecting ballot papers and etc. I wouldn't see myself a challenge in the council putting together a proposal and giving people good reasons to support that. Otherwise, what is the council's role? Because it's not neutral. It's the council that's the developer. It's not neutral in that respect. I think something very different in terms of how the ballot is conducted, as opposed to whether the council says we think this is a great scheme. Because if we don't think it's a great scheme, why are we asking people to vote for it? Why are we putting it forward?
We should only be offering them good schemes because one of them will go forward.
Okay, Councillor Hare.
Well, I was just commenting again that comments should really be going through you, and it's almost as if it's become former cabinet member questions. Just a comment.
Can I make a point, Chair?
Well, I don't want this to become a back and forth.
Through you, Chair. I recall that I indicated through the chair and was called to ask or speak, and that's what I did.
Okay, right. If we have no more questions on this item, Councillor Adjei, you have one more question on this item.
I have one, Chair.
The item is on Broadwater Farm, not on.
Move on because there's questions on repairs, Broadwater Farm.
Yes, absolutely. That was exactly what I was going to do. So, one more substantive item, or half of the Broadwater Farm item, is an update on repair and maintenance issues on Broadwater Farm. I have to say that I'm not entirely sure that the information that's been provided is as detailed as I would have liked, even with the supplementary agenda pack. But anyway, let's press ahead with the item. Councillor Bevan, are you introducing this?
Yes, I'll just say a few words, and perhaps my director could then say some more to address your concerns. So Homes for Haringey does accept that there are issues with the repair service on Broadwater Farm. We've accepted that for some time, and obviously it hasn't been helped by 15 months of COVID and all the, what shall I say, confusion about fire doors, etc., etc. So we've listed for you a number of actions, which I think you might like to expand with the director. And ultimately, we will be reviewing all these actions next March to see how they've worked, to see if they've achieved the improvement that we require. Hopefully they will. And I think you've also been supplied with expenditure figures which show it's not a question of money that's caused some of these problems on Broadwater Farm. It is a really complex structure, the way it was built many, many years ago. So as I've said to you, we've got a number of projects ongoing. We hope that they will solve everything by next March, when we will review it and look back and perhaps come to you with their outcomes. And I'm sure my director can clarify or expand on any issues that you perhaps need a bit more information.
Okay, thanks for that introduction. I mean, I'm kind of struck. I know that, you know, there's an acknowledgement that there are problems, but there's also, you know, a statement that